Good morning, good afternoon to all of you who have joined us for our first Let's Talk ACA. Thank you for taking the time to be with us so we can find out what's new in the ACA landscape. Some housekeeping, we will be able to put your questions in chat. We'll have some time at the end for Q&A. And this call is being recorded, and so if you're registered and on the call, this will be sent to you after the call. I'd like to kick this off to our host today, Alex Ferron, part of the ACA.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. Really appreciate that. And thank you all for joining us here today. Let's see here. Just wanted to do one other thing. So yeah, like Kathy mentioned, as we go through the presentation today, should take about 30 minutes or so. Please feel free to use the chat function for any questions that you might have. If there's anything simple that we can kind of answer on the fly throughout the presentation, we'll certainly do so. Otherwise, as we keep going through, we will have some time for Q&A at the end where we'll go through everything that we've had in the chat. Like Kathy mentioned, everyone should be muted, so don't worry about having your mics off, your cameras off, anything like that. And to kind of introduce what we're talking about today, we wanted to do, besides the educational, the ones, the this and that, we wanted to provide more a discussion on what's going on in the ACA market on a month-to-month basis. So thank you all for joining us. This is exciting to me because this is going to be our first one. So really what this is going to be about is covering kind of the prudent topics that you as agents want to know for what's coming up in the market. And then, like I said, this will be on a monthly basis. So if you don't catch, the next month, keep an eye out for the one after that. We're going to kind of keep you guys apprised of everything that's going on with the ACA market all the way up until open enrollment. So without further ado, let's kind of look at our agenda for the day. So what are we talking about? We are going to first go over some of the big changes that some of you may have heard about with the ACA market for 2026. And what we're going to talk about is Aetna exiting the market. Kind of big news here. What you can expect as an agent, what your clients can expect. Then we're going to go over a few new partnerships that we've seen popping up. We're going to talk about what is the SEPV, something very recently that was introduced by CMS. Going to go over some compliance and just best practice reminders. And if you want to get involved in the ACA, if you're already selling these plans and helping out more than just your Medicare clients, I'm going to tell you how to get started. So let's get underway. So what are some of the big updates that you want to be aware of for 2026? The first one comes in the form of ARPA and IRA. So what this is the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. These were two of the biggest bills in recent history. The American Rescue Plan Act was 21, and I think IRA was 22 or 23. These were some of the biggest impacts to the ACA market in recent history. So they did a number of things which we're going to see changing this year because these bills were only set to go through all of 2025. And currently, the way it stands, they will be expiring. So come 2026, come more importantly, this upcoming open enrollment is where we're going to see these changes take place. So the most important of which, in my opinion, is going to be the reduction of both subsidies and open enrollment. So previously, last year, for example, we had open enrollment all the way from November 1st, its normal starting date, past December 15th, all the way out to January 15th. So a lot of agents really like this. We at JSA found it great because not only did you have that extra month past open enrollment for Medicare to help clients, it just gave you a lot more time to set your appointments, make sure that if you did miss anybody during the Medicare open enrollment scramble, that you still had that additional time to really get back to them and have their plan be effective early in the year. So previously, if you wrote a plan after December 15th, that would be a February 1st start date. So basically what they're doing is they're going to be limiting the open enrollment timeframe back down from November 1st to December 15th, and it's only going to be January 1st effective dates. So if you are coming up to open enrollment, you're setting your appointments, you're getting everything in order, you're only going to have that 1 week from December 7th to December 15th after Medicare open enrollment, if you're double dipping in these markets, to really make sure that you are helping your ACA clients. So take that into mind as we ramp up towards open enrollment, that you're going to have to do a little bit of double duty here if you're working both sides of the business to make sure that you're fitting everyone in during that time frame, because we're going to have a month less than we did last year. Now, like I mentioned, the other most important change is going to be the subsidy, the money off the plans that people actually get to make the Affordable Care Act affordable. So what this is doing is the American Rescue Plan Act expanded subsidies to people over 400% of the federal poverty limit. And I have an example for you in just a moment here on the next slide. What this is now doing is kind of a return to what we used to call a subsidy cliff. So anyone over 400% of the federal poverty limit based on their household size is essentially no longer going to be receiving any form of subsidy. So the past year we saw, couples into their 50s and 60s, maybe they're making more than a six-figure income. They were still getting maybe 100 to 200 bucks off a month towards their plan. But now those couples are essentially going to be at full price again. We're going to see a lot of people have their subsidies fall off and their plan rates increase for 2026, even beyond just the normal ACA rate increases, which I also have an example of, you can see here on the screen. The other thing that is expected to change is the 150% federal poverty limit SEP. Now, what this is this year is that if you have somebody that qualifies for the marketplace, but they are at or under 150% of the federal poverty limit, they could make a change, essentially, evergreen. They can make a change that allows them to switch into a different plan that affords them better savings, a less expensive premium, cost sharing reductions that will be eliminated in 2026. So again, the takeaway here is it's more important than ever to make sure that you are meeting with your clients ahead of time, having them be well informed of how their plan is changing, what to expect for the upcoming year, and put them into a good product well ahead of time that is going to work for them for 2026. So those are the three big things. Again, open enrollment being cut down, subsidies are being reduced, a little bit less enrollment opportunity during the 2026 SEP plan year. The next thing that we could see in 2026 is a change again to short-term medical. Some of you may know that in September of last year, short-term medical was reduced to only a 4-month term limit, where previously they were able to be written for up to 12 months at a time. So this version is more of the old style short-term medical rules where you only have 3 months of coverage with a 1-month extension per application. So the difficulty here is that clients that were maybe, in between jobs, they're gig economy workers, they utilize the short-term medical insurance because if they didn't have an option of group insurance and their marketplace plans were too expensive, the short-term plans were what I would call a really good safety net, catastrophic insurance coverage to get them from either one point to the other, or just give them a more budget option to allow them to sort of bypass the ACA, but still have coverage at an affordable price. So it's something that the Trump administration did their first time in office. A lot of people are speculating that we're going to see that again. I don't know if it will take place this year. The current bill that is going through Congress, as far as I know, doesn't have any revisions to short-term medical. Of course, I haven't read the whole thing. It's massive. I've certainly looked into it, but this is something that I would expect us to see more on the 2026 landscape. But keep an eye out. We'll always be putting out communication if the short-term medical rules are going to go back to what they did previously. Right now, they are only at a 4-month maximum duration, but we could see that go back to 12 months. Now, I have an interesting example here. I'd like to pull this up. So just give me one moment. But what this is an article from the Washington Exchange that explains a couple of things. If I click that link on screen, it's going to bring up this article. And as we can see here, it says insurers see 21.2 average rate increase for 2026 individual health insurance market. And now, this is for the Washington Exchange specifically, but I think it's indicative of a larger change that we're going to see throughout the marketplace this year because of those subsidies falling off. So to go back to the slide here, In 2025, we saw an average rate increase for plans across all marketplaces, federal and state based, of 7%. We saw 6% in 2024. Insurance carriers that work on the Washington exchange are now proposing a rate increase of more than 21%, triple what it was in 2025. And they're citing the loss of subsidies, and people actually dropping off of those ACA plans because the rates are becoming more affordable as the reason why they are requesting this type of rate increase to essentially meet their bottom line. So again, this is only for the Washington exchange. And to reiterate, you'll all receive a copy of the slideshow today with the slides and the links active. So you can go and look at this article a little bit more in depth yourself if you'd like to. But what we're going to see, I think, is higher rate increases this year as the insurance companies want to make up the difference that they're losing and people dropping off the plans due to that loss in subsidy. So interesting example there that I think is a little bit more of a widespread issue. So just as an example, here is what the federal poverty limit chart looks like for 2025. So, we see slight increases or decreases to this year over year. But for example, if you look at the two-person household there, 400% FPL, we see it capped at about $82,000. Now, like I said, this year we're seeing couples making over six figures still at least get a little bit of money off their plan to make it affordable. That's really not going to be the case the way that things are looking right now. So if you have people over that federal poverty limit amount, you can pretty much expect them to not get that ACA subsidy going into 2026. So for those of you that are already working in the business, maybe audit your book of business, look at your health Sherpa platform, see who might fall into that range, and make sure that you are acting accordingly ahead of time to put them on something that's going to work for them. On to the next big topic. Aetna is saying goodbye. We are losing Aetna nationally in the ACA market this year. That was announced within the last couple months, but we're just still getting the word out. We do have some clients, or rather agents with quite big Aetna books of business. So this is going to be a hot topic. What does this mean for clients? Let's talk about the client side of things first. So what they're going to expect if they're on an Aetna plan is they're going to get their non-renewal letter. So these are the letters that both the marketplace and the carrier should be sending out. So your impacted client should be getting two letters. And these will usually go out in sometime late September to October. Essentially, they are guaranteed to reach the client by November 1st, which is the start of open enrollment. So I think it's best practice to maybe put out some kind of mass communication. If you have a lot of the ACA clients that their plans are going to be going away, make sure they're touching base with you and reevaluating their options. But rest assured, they should be getting two letters, one from the marketplace, one from the company, with what to expect for the upcoming open enrollment and encouraging them to make a new choice. Now, on the agent side of things, what does this mean for you guys? Really, what it means is that if you have SEP opportunities now for some of your clients and you want to try to be proactive, maybe look at switching them off of the Aetna platform. If you can find them a comparable network, a plan with similar benefits, look to switching them preemptively so that you're not bogging yourself down during open enrollment. A big tip that I have found helpful is that if you have your Aetna clients in Health Sherpa, or if you just go to your Aetna Producer World agent portal, you can export your ACA book of business. And if you don't already have that, make sure that you're putting those into your Health Sherpa or other CRM platform so that you can better reach out to those clients. Because essentially, as far as I understand, I don't know the entire, carrier side of things at this time, but it's very likely that you're not going to be able to pull that data from your book of business after January 1st of next year. So be proactive about that one. Now, the impacted areas that you're seeing here on screen are just a few that I've pulled as more of an example. So we got 4 states, Illinois, Florida, Texas, and Utah. These were some of the states that, based on population with the counties there, you'll see that these are some of the highest population counties that had Aetna as either the top choice silver or bronze plan. So at a glance, if you are working in any of these counties, 2 things. 1, know that your Aetna clients in those areas are going to be losing their plan. 2, know that other Aetna clients in those areas are going to be essentially needing to find a new choice of an affordable plan. So good, opportune areas if you're working in any of those states. This is kind of just an example that I like to show recently. It shows from 2018 to 2023, just a 5-year course, how many new carriers have come into the market. And yes, this is 2 years old at this point, but we've seen only growth for the most part. Aetna is probably the biggest national carrier that we've seen exit the market since this time. I don't expect that to be a greater impact by everyone. I think that Aetna, based on what I know, is being preemptive with some of the changes that are expiring this year to make that choice to maintain their bottom line. But you can see clearly from 2018 to 2023 how much the market has actually expanded in terms of choice, in terms of auctions by county. Again, I don't expect this to be a very prevalent change with large carriers, especially since we haven't heard anything else this year. I do expect choice by county to continue to increase year over year. Let's talk about a couple of the new partnerships that we heard this year. Big one that we are still scoping out is Common Ground and CareSource. For those of you in Wisconsin, Common Ground Healthcare Cooperative is a big player in the ACA market of the state. They hold a very large share of the enrollments in Wisconsin. They have been acquired by CareSource. That deal was put through last year with the January 1st, 2025 effective date. So essentially, on paper, these companies are merged currently. Right now, we do hold the CareSource contract. So we are still just working with the company to see when the Common Ground deployment will be integrated. But we do expect, hopefully by the end of summer, hopefully a little bit sooner in the middle of summer, so we can get you guys set up ahead of time for Common Ground to now be available through the CareSource contract, either retroactively or with just adding a new line of business. So if you're already working with CareSource, just know that it's very likely you will have access to the Common Ground product as well. Or if you want to work with Common Ground, get in touch with JSA and we should have that available for you sometime this summer. Again, I have a link to the article there if anyone would like to take a look after the fact. The other big merger we've heard about recently is Molina and Connecticut for anyone working out on the East Coast. Molina has recently acquired Connecticut. Basically, the way that it looks is Molina is trying to be more competitive in the states that they have a presence in. They have acquired Connecticut, which is going to lead to a big boost to their bottom line in terms of premium and enrollment in the state. Connecticut is, as far as I know, the biggest ACA enroller in the state of Connecticut. So more on that. We are actively in talks with Molina about seeing if that appointment will be added so that they can actually sell the products. But just be aware that if you're working on the East Coast, Connecticut has now been acquired by Molina. It's very likely that those contracts are going to be merged so that we'll be able to offer you guys a Connecticut product as well. But more on that to come. So what is the SEPV? SEPV, some of you may have heard about this recently. This was only effective for a little less than a month at this point, but this stands for Special Election Period Verification. So this was specifically effective on May 16th this year, just last month. And again, if you'd like, I have the announcement link from CMS there where they go over pretty much everything this entails. And I'll say this is more than just an announcement. If anybody's working on the marketplace in the off season, definitely take the slides today in my follow-up email, click on that link and read through. It's about 17 slides. Everything that this impacts, but I'm going to give you the big takeaways so that you're at least aware of it. For this as well, you're going to see it in the slides if you check them out. MEC means a minimum essential coverage. So what's the big takeaway here? The big thing that you have to know in terms of working with your clients is that consumers must now prove the loss of minimum essential coverage prior to their plan actually going effective. So what this means is that previously, when you had a marketplace SEP for a loss of coverage, it wouldn't always necessarily be checked for the client to submit documentation. It was more of a case-by-case basis, or the plan would go effective prior to that data being received by the marketplace or any documents that they've requested. They would actually make the plan effective before the client proved that, and then they would prove it kind of retroactively if requested by the client. So what is it going to come down to now is the point of sale versus document submission for proving this SEP. And from what CMS is saying, because it's from the federal side of things, it will impact all exchanges. However, it is kind of set in stone on the federal marketplace states. If you're working in a state-based exchange, again, Washington, California, Colorado, New York, anything like that, they may have their own additional rules for proving SEP verification. So just take that into mind. But what you can expect in general now is that if clients have to do an SEP that requires them to prove a loss of coverage, they're going to have to do that before their plan goes effective, and they have a 30-day resolution window from the time of request by the marketplace to do so. So really what this means is that the plan will still go effective the day that the client requested. So if they sign up in May, their plan will be effective June 1st, even if they haven't proved their loss of coverage by that time. However, they won't actually have their ID card. If they go to a provider, they're just going to have to do a claim submission on the back end once their plan becomes effective. The effective date will be honored, but they still have to prove that loss of coverage before it actually goes effective. So that's the big point here. Make sure that your clients have the documentation that they need. The best example I can give is, let's say you lose your group plan, try to have a letter from the employer stating that this is the day they lost it, here's the impacted clients or employees, and that will be sufficient proof for the marketplace. Now, without getting too deep into it, I know that that is often a pain point because some employers may not send that out in a timely manner. So just be aware clients do have 30 days to prove that. And if it's a case when the employer is lagging way behind on there, usually the marketplace will still make an exception to help them get in. Speaking of compliance, this is something that I always talk about in my one-on-ones. I really just wanted to include this for you guys because of the links in here. I'm not going to touch on this too big, but there's two main things we have to know about. First, the PII and consent attestation form. This was a change back in June of 2018, or excuse me, 2023. Just know that if you're working on the federal marketplace, you need to take a consent form for your clients that says two things. One, I'm handling my client's PII, personally identifiable information, in a safe way. I'm doing it to the best of my ability, and I am not allowing any sort of data leak. The other part of that is that you are accurately explaining to the client how the subsidy works, going through the enrollment with them, and essentially doing your job as an agent. All that you need to know is that these don't have to be submitted to carriers. You just have to keep them on file for a minimum of 10 years, kind of like a scope of appointment, but the method is much more loose. You can take your paper form, text, email, voice recording, anything that you can save on file. And again, I have the link there if you want to see more of an in-depth article on that from CMS. The other big one was last year in July, the AOR protections. Basically, what this means is that if you have a client that already has an agent, maybe another agent that they aren't super satisfied with, they don't talk to them, they don't follow up on their plan, you can still enroll that client into a new plan. However, it needs to be a client forward process. So, two ways. One, you make a three-way call with the marketplace, or two, you use Health Sherpa as a platform for the federal exchange, and you have that client go through the enrollment in a client facing way. So there's an option on Health Sherpa to do that. Again, if you have any questions about that, we can always get you a training video or something from our Health Sherpa rep to help you out with that process. But just know that the client has to be more involved now if they already have an agent and they want to switch to you as their agent of record. So keep that in mind. I'll also provide our attestation form for the first point in the follow-up email if you'd like to use that as an example. So we're about 30 minutes in. We are coming to the end of our presentation here, but I have your first steps and then a few more things just before we get into the Q&A section. So if you want to get involved in ACA Marketplace, if you want to be not only the Medicare agent in your area, but a community agent serving all types of people, making sure that you're not leaving any money on the table, the absolute best first step you can do is certification. So for the federal marketplace, I have again the links to the guides, the link to the account creation there that you will need. Your best thing to do is get your marketplace certification done. This is done through the CMS website. It's an annual certification, kind of like the AHIP, but it does not cost you anything. Totally free on your side, no $125 to play. And what we need to know is that currently the certifications are still open. So you can certify for the 2025 plan year. And you might say, well, Alex, why would I do that? Usually the certifications close down sometime in July for the next plan year. And those are often available in like late July or August sometimes. So why am I going to certify for 25 if I just have to do them again in a month? And the best reason is to save yourself time. If you do them now, you will get a vastly reduced course load when the 2026 ones are available. So think later in the summer, oh, new contracts. I need this product. I'm trying to set my appointments. I got to do my AHIP. This is always such a pain. That's right. I already did my FFM certification. Now, instead of taking me 4 or 6 hours during the busiest time of the year, it's going to take me 1 hour. I go in, vastly reduced course load, quick attestation, and I'm off to the races for next year. So if you know you're going to be doing this upcoming open enrollment and you haven't certified yet, take the time now, get it done. Come late July, early August, you're going to have a much easier time. For the state-based marketplaces, I include a list. If anyone is working in both the federal and the state-based, just know that you have to do certifications based on the state, not by the carrier. There's no additional carrier training. It just depends on what state you're working in. So if you're working in only Wisconsin, Florida, Texas, all federal marketplace states, boom, one certification. If you throw in California and Colorado, Colorado's an extra certification, California's an extra certification because they run their own exchanges. So just check that link, make sure you're covered in the states that you're working in. If you want to save yourself some time, hit us up at JSA. We'll tell you exactly what you need to do. So now just a quick couple pitches here. If you guys are working with the ACA, we are now partnered up with RetireFlow. They make collecting that consent form I talked about easier than ever. So this is a survey service. So basically you can hyperlink it to your website, to your email signature, to any sort of social media page. Clients go, fill out a quick survey. It pre-generates that compliance consent form so that you don't have to take that at the time of application. And you then have everything you need to run them a quote. You look super professional sending that back to a client before they even talk to you. You can give them an affordable plan. And from there, you just talk about the enrollment. You just get to the good part. This is our new CRM that we have built from the ground up with the administrator for agents only. We have stripped away everything that makes those other CRMs annoying. This is built for agents by agents. And I know that sounds like a bit of a cliche, but so many of the people I work with here at JSA come from the field. Kathi included has been an agent in the past and has some fantastic experience that frankly I don't, only having worked at JSA. So we have partnered with those people, taken a lot of feedback from agents here within JSA, and we have built our own CRM that not only allows you to put in all your client data, but for Medicare, it allows you to do enrollments right through the platform or automated marketing outreach based on some really cool AI tools that we're just seeing, I think, kind of the cusp of what they can do right now. Once we have more people involved, we're in sort of a beta testing phase right now, which you can sign up for by using that link. You will be able to get your hands on this. We're doing it for a very low monthly cost, and those marketing tools are going to be invaluable to you. So go and check that out.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining. I'm going to answer a few questions. Starting from the bottom, the core cost is $35. We are in a pilot phase right now. There is a waiting list. I believe everything will open up in a month for all. We didn't want a big flux of people coming in where we wouldn't be able to get them oriented into the new core system. So it's been done one by one. And if you're interested, it's a great CRM.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathi. Let me see here. I'm going to the top of the chat. And again, I want to thank you all for being here today. We had really great attendance here, over 170 people joining in at peak. So really, I appreciate that so much at this time of the year when things are starting to ramp up. We're just going to be doing a Q&A section now, which will be on the recording. So if anyone needs to bob off, again, really appreciate your attendance today. Thanks for joining us here. Let me see here. Eliza says they requested it a lot last year too, but the commissioner didn't approve it as far as I remember. That was in regards to the Washington state rate increases. Yes, a lot of it does come down to the insurance commissioner in that state. I know that Washington is pretty particular about both of the commissions being paid to agents from the carriers and the requested rate increases. So, that's not something that's set in stone. I just thought that was a really interesting article that a coworker sent me. as something that could be more indicative on the main stage of ACA as we get closer to open enrollment. You're correct. Not set in stone, something they still have to. Let's see here. Arlene and Susan asked about the Aetna exit. Kathy had it on the money. They are pulling out of the ACA market nationally. So, yes, all Aetna plans will end at the end of this year. Let's see here. Joseph said, isn't the Washington Exchange an outlier? They're one of the most regulated and difficult to work with, in my opinion. Also, at six figures, they may not like the change, but it doesn't stop them from choosing an option more affordable than elsewhere. If subsidies are reduced for under the 400 FPL, then I can see an issue. Yeah, great statement, Joseph. What I'll say is that the Washington Exchange is an outlier. Again, they're a state-based exchange. The commissioner in that state does seem to be pretty picky year over year. So more on that to come. At six figures, they may not like the change, the clients, but it doesn't stop them from choosing an option more affordable elsewhere. Absolutely correct. Some of these people, because they would have gotten money off of their plan, may have chosen a more robust option like a silver or a gold plan. Doesn't stop them from just reevaluating, picking a gold or excuse me, a bronze option that's a bit more affordable for them. So, again, clients that don't get subsidy, which is a common misconception, they can still enroll in the ACA. It's just that their plan isn't going to be affordable as before. Are subsidies reduced for under the 400 FPL? We have to see. I mean, it essentially expanded subsidies on all levels. So I would expect to see some reduction of subsidies. It just depends again on the household size and the income. Okay, let's see here. And I have enrolled clients and they will not effectuate the coverage until the documents are received. I am in Wisconsin. Yeah, absolutely. That was effective right away on May 16th. So looks like Amy, you had the same experience as well. Just a heads up, make sure you guys are aware of your clients needing to prove that loss of coverage in order to have their plans effectuated. Keep going through here. Arlene, each year or once. So that was in reference to the consent form. I'll speak a little bit more to that. For that consent form, again, that's only a mandatory requirement for the federal marketplace states. State exchanges are going to have their own compliance requirements. Best practice, I would say, would be to take one a year if there were any changes for that client. If they had a change in income, a change in their household, they moved, anything else like that that might alter PII, their personally identifiable information, take a new form, keep it on file, but otherwise CMS hasn't specified how often those need to be claimed from clients. So as long as you have a form on file and you're keeping that for 10 years, you're good to go. You do not need to take 1 year over year. Sandy, I love Retire Flow and I use it for Medicare and ACA. It makes the data gathering and consent form so much easier. Awesome, Sandy. So glad to hear you're using that. Thanks for the feedback. Let's see here. Tim, does JSA cover the cost? That was in regards to the core CRM. Kathy mentioned that would be $35 a month. Armin, will core include the ACA confirmation permission link? Nope, that's going to be specifically a retire flow feature. However, I will say, and here's a little bit of insider information, a tip, if you will. You can export your book of business either from Health Sherpa or like a carrier portal that you're working with, import that into Core. And then, like I was talking about before, we have a lot of integrated sort of AI marketing tools where you can take an entire book and set follow-ups for them, do sort of outreach on a set basis. You could always include either our consent form or a survey of your own design with a link. Microsoft Office, I believe, offers some free survey platforms that you can Google. You can include a survey and essentially kind of do your own version of that using the core platform. Tim asked, how much is retired flow? I believe it's either on a 6-month or a year basis. I won't say off the top of my head because frankly, I don't remember the cost and I don't want to misspeak, but that is up on the Agent Resource Center. We have a whole sort of page on Retire Flow there. So go and check that out. You'll have access to the Agent Resource Center as long as you have one, active contract through JSA, which I know you do, Tim. So appreciate you looking into that. Patricia, if you switch CRMs, will you help import client info and data? I mean, yeah, we're certainly going to have trainings and walkthroughs for agents. Again, like Kathy said, we're kind of in that beta testing phase right now. So we're working out any of the kinks that we might incur. But the option is there. You can import any sort of Excel file with data in it or otherwise. So if you have questions on that or you want some help once the full platform is out, we can absolutely kind of help and walk you through that. Merlin, can the SCP verification be submitted via Sherpa like the other documents? Yes. It doesn't really change the method for submitting it. It just changes the time frame more than anything else, where they're not going to effectuate a plan ahead of time. Hey, Hanny, Alex and Kathy, great presentation. Hey, thank you so much, Hanny. Quick question. Currently on only the state-based exchange, they asked the client to request me before I can help them. Does this take place on the consent form? It's a completely different thing I need to have them do. So I think that is either the New Jersey or the Connecticut exchange. I remember from speaking with you in the past, Hanny, where you're working. That would be a state-based exchange thing only. Again, one of those kind of odd rules that when a state runs their own exchange, they can put on different requirements like that. So not a universal thing, just probably where you're working. Thomas, can you address the new question on Health Sherpa about clients aging into Medicare? Did the answers trigger anything in regards to termination of ACA plans? No, it doesn't automatically, target the termination of that plan. I think really what that stems from, Thomas, and I can't be 100% on this because I don't work for Health Sherpa, but they have also introduced a Medicare enrollment platform. I think really what they're trying to do is just make the data a little bit more convenient for agents that also use that side of the enrollment software so that you can have a bit of a better follow up with those clients once they're actually Medicare eligible. I really think that's all right. Jamie, we still need Retire Flow as well as a CRM, correct? Would like to see a demo of what it offers. Yeah, absolutely. We have demos up right now in our agent resource center for both Retire Flow and Core. Again, if you want to click those links once I send out the slides, that will take you there. Endo, FPL for next year, if somebody is 150% FPL, will lose tax credit. No, they're not going to have that SCP available throughout the year to switch to a better plan, but they're still going to be subsidized. So as long as they're eligible for the marketplace and their income isn't too low where they're routed into the state's Medicare program, excuse me, Medicaid program, they're still going to be able to get their tax credit. Hey, thank you so much for joining today. Really appreciate that. Somebody asked, I'm currently contracted with Common Ground. Is there anything I need to do with CareSource ACA acquiring? No, not at the moment. As far as I know, you're not going to have automatic access to the CareSource product. I don't believe it works kind of in the reverse way, but stay tuned on that one. We are still working with the company because the appointments essentially haven't been consolidated yet. But if you're only working with Common Ground, there's nothing else you need to do at the moment. Tim, what levels of contracts did JSA offer for ACA? We offer all kinds of contracts, whether you are a standalone business that does a ton of production, that we can offer a little bit more over the top of the street level commission. Or if you are an agency manager, you got a full team of agents, we have everything available to make sure that you can build out and grow your business. We have competitive overrides. And for all of our national contracts, at the very minimum, we offer the same fair market value that you would make if you had a direct appointment with a carrier like Ambetter or UHC. Arlene, do you still have an office in Florida? Fort Myers, feel free to stop by anytime. The information is on our website if you'd like to pop in and speak with any of our staff. Hope you join us. Anthony, where is the job aid on Retire Flow in I believe we have a Retire Flow tab. I can double check on that for you. Feel free to get in touch with me directly if you want to send me an email, Anthony. Are there any new carriers in Iowa, Illinois, or Texas for 2026? Frankly, Maryland, there could be. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. We do this with a pretty lean team on a national basis, but I haven't heard of any big new carriers in those states for 2020. That might be announced now if there's a new player in the market. However, we're really not going to see a lot of updates to that until we get closer to open enrollment. The ACA is pretty last minute with their rates and expansion information. Earliest we're going to see that is probably late August. Let's see here. Diane, I have always found that a call to the marketplace for somebody going on to Medicare will stop their ACA coverage. I mean, generally, yes. Like if somebody calls the marketplace and says that they're aging into Medicare, it is, a pretty common thing for them to receive a letter saying that their plan is going to terminate. And that's usually in the case of, I would say 95% of clients that are going to have their Part A Medicare for free. If you have somebody who's maybe a foreign national that is either a green card holder or now a U.S. citizen, but they haven't worked those 40 quarters to get Medicare Part A for free, they can actually stay on their ACA plan and still be eligible for subsidy. If you want to discuss that more, Diane, feel free to reach out to us. That's a bit more of an in-depth situation. Patricia was responding to Orlando about the federal poverty limit and subsidy. Thank you. Let's see here. Is JSA direct contracted or through Agility like most of the other AmeriLife affiliates for ACA? So it's a bit of a mix. We do hold some of our contracts direct with the carriers. Other ones we do have with Agility. They are our ACA partner in the space. We kind of like to think of them as the JSA of ACA, but we work with them very closely to make sure that we can provide you guys the same level of service and better overrides and more effective or more competitive commissions rather than we may have otherwise, or if we went through other sort of AmeriLife affiliates. But yeah, it's a bit of a mix. We're always upfront though with when our commissions are being paid, that you will always retain your business. We're non-captive and everything is still vested in you. Crystal, the Virginia State Exchange has an option where the marketplace member can add us as agent on their end. Does the consent form still need to be done when they add us themselves? For Virginia specifically, no, because they are now running their own state-based exchange, and Georgia's going to be the same way since they converted last year. You do not need to do that. That is kind of up to the state at that point. If they have any other sort of compliance requirements, going to totally be on their end. But don't worry about that. For Virginia, I say if you're working at any state-based exchange, taking the consent form is not a bad practice. Certainly keeps you a little bit more protected if you were to ever have a complaint with the State Department of Insurance, but not required, only mandatory for the federal exchange. So good question, Crystal. Thank you so much. And really good questions to everyone here. I really appreciate the engagement that we had in the chat today.
And we also have our own ACA email address. If you have any questions or need help, please email us directly. Alex or I will address it as soon as we can at aca@jsaonline.com.
Remember, go check out our events page. We're going to be doing one of these a month. Make sure that you guys are all on top of everything that you need as we get closer to open enrollment. Go to the Agent Resource Center. That's where you're going to see some of those materials like on the tire flow and the new core CRM like Kathi was just talking about. But yeah, stay tuned. We're going to be doing more trainings as well. If anyone wants to have a little bit more of a 101, we're going to have a video on demand up on the arm very soon. I was just talking with one of our marketing folks today. So you'll be able to see that, or we'll be doing more of those as we get closer to open enrollment. But I hope to see all of you and more on our next monthly ACA talk. I appreciate you so much spending the time with us.